Angie, before you tell us who our guest is going to be today, I want to make a comment about our last episode entitled Saving the Monarch Butterfly. You know, when we shared that episode, the monarch butterfly came into California. Very cool.
Yes, I read about that, and everyone was really happy because their numbers are finally increasing. Yay, butterflies. It's such a beautiful thing to see when you see a bunch of black and orange butterflies.
Yeah, and if you missed that episode, you might want to check it out because it was a particularly nice one. Hi, everyone, and here we are celebrating what people love to do creatively by giving them a voice. I'm Rod Jones.
And I'm Angie Jones. Welcome to the Thought Row Podcast. We invite you to subscribe wherever you listen, and our episodes are always absolutely free to listen to. You can go to our website at thoughtrowpodcast.com, and you can listen to current and past episodes right there on the website, so you don't have to download an app or anything like that.
It's incredibly convenient.
It is.
So tell us who our guest is going to be today. I'm kind of excited about this one.
I am too. She is so wonderful. You guys are really going to like her. Today we're going to be speaking with Terri Nakamura, and she is a social media consultant and the author of the book, Blogging on Instagram, Engagement Writing on one of the world's best social media platforms.
One thing I'm really excited to hear from Terri is how to be more successful on social media, and for me, especially Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Before we bring her on, how about laying your quote on us?
Okay, here's my quote. Here's the quote, I should say. It's not my quote. The secret to living well and longer is eat half, walk double, laugh triple, and love without measure. And that is, I think, a Tibetan proverb is what I have seen.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm walking a lot.
Yes, you are.
And I laugh, no problem.
Yeah.
I laugh at what I do when we podcast.
No, you laugh a lot.
Yes.
Really, you do.
And love triple. No, just love without measure. Yep, do that.
Do that.
But I guess where I'm a little weak is eating half.
Well, that is kind of hard sometimes because you're hungry and you want to eat, right?
Yeah, but we eat really healthy. I mean, it's amazing how healthy we do eat. And you can eat as much spinach as you want, right?
Well, yeah, and we have spinach and, all the good stuff, all the good for you stuff. And then that way when you eat something a little naughty, then it's not too bad. Well,
I think that's really a good quote.
Yeah.
And one that we should all try to follow.
Definitely. But now it's going to be time for your Rod's motivational moment.
Well, my motivational moment is thoughts and ideas have a shelf life. They have a mysterious way of fleeting. Write them down.
Gosh, entirely true. And how many times have we chatted about that on the show?
We've chatted about this quite a bit, and I have made the comment that I'll wake up in the middle of the night, most specifically 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'll write something down, a brilliant idea will come to my head. Thankfully, I just put my head back on the pillow and go right back to sleep.
Yeah, but you write it down, right?
I definitely write it down. I tried once before. I thought, okay, if it's a really good idea,
you'll remember
it's going to stay.
Right?
Yeah, but guess what?
Don't.
Well, sometimes it does, but more often than not, it doesn't. And I think I get a sense of security when I write it down. And then I could go back to sleep quite comfortably knowing. And then I have to admit, I have got up in the morning, looked at my note and go, what the heck were you thinking?
Well, yeah, that's 3 o'clock thinking, right? In the middle of the night thinking.
And the other one I like is and we all do this, when we go from one room to another room to pick up something, and then we walk over that threshold, and then we go, what did I come in here for? Yeah,
you forget. It's so true. I think we all do that because our minds are going really fast.
Well, I guess the psychologists tell us there's a reason why we do that. But like you suggested, what if you just have sticky notes and you go, I'm going to go to the room and get a book. You write it down on the sticky note. You go through the threshold and then...
And refer to your note.
You refer to your notes. I like your idea about the pencil.
I think that you should get a lanyard and get a teeny tiny notebook and then attach it to the lanyard. And then you have to go to IKEA or a golf store and get a little tiny pencil, and you can put it in there in the little spiral area. And anytime you get a news flash idea, you can just write it down.
Yeah, whether you're going into another room or not, maybe you just have a cool idea.
Right.
You'll look kind of silly with that hanging around your neck.
Well,
but what the heck?
All in the of ideas.
Better
right?
to do that than lose a great idea.
Right on.
And we all are capable of producing some really great ideas.
No, I have a question for you though before we go on. Is there a certain room in the house that you go to that you're like, this is the oracle room where I get messages from I don't know where because they're always good ideas?
Well, I know I often joke about one particular room. I do get good ideas in our office and in the studio, especially when I'm painting. Mm-hmm. I get reasonably good ideas when we're in our podcasting room.
Yeah.
But I know what you're alluding to.
Yeah. Tell us about your special room, Rod.
Well, it seems like when Angie and I are writing and working on a project, and then I get up to go to the restroom, and then I come running back with this brilliant idea. It's the smallest restroom in the house. It's right in the center, no windows, no nothing. But for some reason, it seems to be a magic vortex for great ideas.
It is. Every time, like the last 2 days, every time you go to the bathroom, it's like, oh, I have a great idea. And you come running back.
Yeah, and actually, they're pretty doggone good ideas.
They were.
That's what's even more shocking.
That's your energy space, that bathroom, the teeny bathroom. Yeah, I agree. For me, I like the shower. I like having ideas in the shower. Like this morning, I had a really good idea. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes when I'm cleaning, like I think it's the repetitive motion of cleaning or doing something, I'll like develop ideas because you're not thinking about what you're doing necessarily.
No, it frees up your mind. Mm-hmm. So creative thoughts pop in and out of your head.
Yeah.
But again, if you're vacuuming, get that little piece of paper and write it down before you forget it.
If you like vacuuming, I do not.
Well, whatever,
not my favorite,
whatever a person's doing.
Yeah. But, I know we're going to be discussing social media with Terri, who's our guest today on the show. But what do you think it's done for you, Rod?
There is one thing.
It's a hard question.
It is a hard question, but there is something that I have to say about it. I have met some incredible people on social media. Some I've actually known for 10 years.
True.
And they're delightful people. And some of them are artists, and not all of them are artists or creative people. But they just have been very lovely to get to know. I always comment on their posts. They comment on my posts, which I really appreciate. I guess that's good for my, dopamine?
Yeah, all the chemicals that social media induces in your brain, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. But I think for me, that's probably the thing, is the wonderful people that I've met. And I suppose it's helped build our brand, and I suppose it has had some, definitely it's had a positive impact on our podcast. But it's the people that we've met and gotten to know. What about you?
Well, as you know, I have a love, and I don't really know about this relationship with social media, because on one hand, I love it because, I go in with the intent of, okay, we're going to be concentrating on business, but then really it all dissolves in like 1 second, because we do have long time friends on there, and people that are very supportive and very kind and very nurturing. And then there's the other part about social media that I don't like, which is people that follow and unfollow you. Like, why? And algorithms, I think, really kind of mess things up, because sometimes you can't see the people that you really like to see, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So any social media platform, if they can give you a preference of, these are my friends and I want that to see them. And even on Instagram, you're supposedly able to put a friends list, but really they don't always show those people on your
not consistently.
timeline.
No, not
so it's kind of frustrating to me regarding that.
Well, the other thing I think is become passé, if I could use that word, is people that show
that was
themselves.
So 70s. Wait,
Yeah,
passe.
passe.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, give me a 2010 idea.
Bomb.
Okay.
Bomb.
I think what has changed, at least it has in my way of thinking, is people that have 25,000 followers and they're only following 6 people. And I think they think
and they follow you.
Yeah, well, then they follow you, they're going to dump you.
Yeah.
But the other part of that, I suspect they think that they're really cool or really hot because they have so many followers. The most successful people on social media that I've seen and gotten to know, their numbers are pretty balanced.
Yeah.
If somebody takes the time to follow you, follow them back. Don't just dump them.
Well, this is supposed to be social media where you're having a conversation with one another. It's just not, building your numbers only and not engaging with anyone. That's not really very social.
Yeah, well.
Really. But you know what? I think it's time for us to bring on our guest, who is certainly more of an expert in that area than we are in social media. So let's hear from her.
Hi, Terri. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be an episode that virtually everyone is going to learn something from because you are an expert in social media.
Yes. Hi,
boy,
Terri.
We need that.
Hi, Terri. Rod and I have been on social media for several years, but I know that we and our listeners are really going to learn a lot from you today.
Well, Rod and Angie, thank you so much for inviting me to be here, and I hope that I can share some wisdom that will help other people. It's my pleasure. So thank you.
Okay, great.
You're welcome.
Well, we know you will share some really good things.
Absolutely. But before we start our interview, we always ask our guests what they had for breakfast. So Terri, what did you have for breakfast?
This is so embarrassingly boring, but I had oatmeal with blueberries and blackberries. And then I made myself a cup of French roast and half and half. And that was the whole thing.
It sounds really delicious, though.
No, it's very healthy.
It's very healthy.
Very healthy. And actually, quite a few responses that we have, people have had oatmeal.
So a lot of healthy eaters out there.
You're in good company.
Yeah.
Terri, I'd like to know, we'd like to know, where are you originally from and a little bit about your childhood, and then we'll get on to where you're currently living now.
Okay. Well, I was born in Colorado, but I grew up in Seattle. So I've been here for many decades. I grew up in a really diverse Seattle neighborhood in the South End. There were all kinds of people of different colors and nationalities. And so I always thought it was that way for everybody. I always thought people grew up around a lot of different kinds of people. And it was only much later in life that I realized that that wasn't the case. But as a kid, I really enjoyed hanging out outside, and I was a brownie and a Girl Scout.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
I always loved art, and, it rains a lot in Seattle. So on rainy days, I'd go into my family's junk drawer and grab things out of it and make inventions out of them. So that was one of the things that I loved doing, but I was always a pretty creative kid.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
And obviously you still are today.
I try.
So your favorite childhood memory would be?
Well, my favorite childhood memory, in the summers, we would take a family trip to Hood River, Oregon, because my father was from there and my grandparents were there. And I loved visiting them because they had orchards. They grew apples and pears and cherries. And I just really loved my grandmother so much. And even though she only spoke Japanese and I only spoke English, we had a really, really strong bond. And often my aunt would sit there translating for us because I had so many questions, and we couldn't speak. But I learned a lot through having my aunt there translating my questions to my grandmother and her answers back. So I always looked forward to that. That was really special for me.
Oh, that's such a sweet story, Terri, and endearing.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty special because I did take Japanese in high school, but when I realized I was getting a B, and then the next quarter I got a C. I had to drop Japanese because it was ruining my GPA.
Oh, no. Oh, that's terrible. That's too bad you had to drop it, but understand about the GPA, right?
At least you got to write the letter.
Yeah,
that made a huge difference in your grandmother. She was probably...
It was very special to my grandmother.
Yeah, I bet. She was extremely proud of her granddaughter.
Oh, definitely. So sweet.
You're next.
Well, I'm going to move on. Before we explore social media, you are a communications professional with more than 20 years of experience. Can you share with us your journey, Terri?
Well, I started my business shortly after I graduated from college, and the economy was pretty bad, and I knew that I wanted to create something for myself. So I began my studio. And my first clients were advertising agencies, and I did a lot of work for them. And eventually I bought a copy camera. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
Yeah,
but
actually, we do.
A stat camera. And so I did a lot of work for different publications, and I had people working for me, shooting stats and halftones and stuff like that. And then I eventually was doing more work with direct clients as a designer. And my studio stayed in business for a very long time, and I made a good living. Really enjoying what I was doing, like really thanking every single day that I was able to make a living doing what I was doing because I loved it so much.
Wow.
I could see.
I could see that too. Yeah.
And that was in Seattle, correct?
That was my first real office was in Pioneer Square, which was kind of the epicenter of everything back in those days. And I like to call it the golden age of Seattle because every time you're in your 20s and 30s, it's the golden age for you, right? So,
that's true. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but what a very interesting place to be. I mean, you had talented people that were around you too, so it makes it even more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, all the ad agencies were kind of clustered in that area, so it was pretty cool.
You must have had some really wonderful lunches.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we also know that you've created numerous blogs, and it's my understanding that you have been a contributing writer and a guest blogger, which is kind of interesting. Tell us about that, Terri.
Well, I had an opportunity to write blog posts that have been published here, like in different parts of the United States, Canada, and Europe. And at the time, I just thought it was really fun and exciting to be invited to do that. And I didn't realize there was really any value to it. But because I felt like I was doing them a favor since it saved them from having to create content. But now I understand how powerful it is to be able to be a guest blogger and expand your reach through another person's audience. So I was kind of off of it for a long time, but now I'm starting to pursue it again. And I realize it's really fun, and it is a really valuable activity if you can engage in that.
I would think so. I have a kind of a question about that because as a guest blogger, I'm assuming that they give you the subject matter that they want you to write about.
Or can you just write about anything you wish?
Well, that's not really the case, at least as far as I'm concerned, because since my knowledge base is in a certain area, they just mainly want me to write about that. And I usually try to tie it in somehow to, to the blog itself. Like if it's an art blog, then, I would try to gear it somewhat to artists. So it's something that I think that everybody benefits from. And like I said, my original thought was that it's really hard to write blog content. And so if you have a guest blogger, then you're off the hook that week.
It's true.
Yeah, I think that's the
true.
biggest issue. If you're turning out a blog every week, you have to create that content. And if you can lay it off on a competent writer, which people obviously did with you, that's pretty amazing. That's good.
It's really a benefit to everybody. But I didn't realize how much it was also a benefit to the blogger until, in the last few years, I've started to recognize that.
Yeah, well, we all run out of topics.
Well, and then you have so many other layers to your business too, usually, that, if you've got saddled with doing the blog on top of everything else, it's kind of a big commitment.
Yeah, it's kind of like producing a podcast.
Kind of like that. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
It
is exactly like that.
Kind of like that.
You guys do such an amazing job with it too. I'm really impressed.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, we know you're no stranger to technology and how useful it is in promoting a brand. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you are engaging with technology and promoting brands?
Well, social media has been a really amazing invention in technology that anybody can use to promote their brand. And so Seth Godin has been quoted as saying content marketing is the only marketing that's left. And I really agree that in order to really promote your brand and to establish, connections with people, it's essential to provide value to whatever it is that you put out. And so people do broadcast a lot of information through technology, through different channels of social media. But it's also really important to engage with your audience, because if you're just broadcasting, it's kind of like it lands with a thud,
Mm-hmm.
But if you draw people into whatever it is, there's so many benefits. And one of the things that can happen is this thing called UGC, user-generated content. And when someone is really excited about you or what you're doing or what you've said, and they amplify it, that is one of the most powerful ways that your brand can be validated by others. So I see the use of technology as just this amazing opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, and it's sometimes I think it's kind of crowded. What is your thoughts on that? I mean, where somebody said everybody's on there and everybody's screaming for attention. What do you think about that, Terri?
Well, it is really crowded. There are certain ways of working around that. For example, on Twitter, I have a lot of followers, and I'm following a lot of people as well. And so I've developed a technique where I don't really see a lot of the noise or hear a lot of the noise, and that is by only filtering out the comments that are directly addressed to me, and that is like someone tweeting me and saying, at Terri Nakamura, blah, blah, blah. And so when you're only looking at those things, then that person is already wanting to connect with you and is saying something specifically to you. And if you answer that person, it is an opportunity to create a conversation that can be ongoing for years and years. I mean, kind of a continuing friendship, really.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But if all you do is you tune into Twitter, for example, and look at the open feed, I quite frankly don't know how people can manage that, because there's just like this effluence of information, like constantly, loading down your timeline, and it's not even possible to read anything, let alone interact with anybody. So, filtering your content, your tweets, and through mentions is a really great way of really zeroing in on the people who are interested in you and interested in your content, because normally it's people that are making comments about the things I've posted. So I know who's actually reading it, and I can talk to them about it.
So if they make a comment, then you obviously respond to them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If someone addresses me directly on Twitter, there's like a 99% chance I'm going to respond to them specifically.
And does that ever create a kind of a conversation that goes on for a while?
Oh yeah. Recently I reunited with somebody that I've known for about 10 years, and we lost track of each other in Rod and Inchi. This happens a lot when people have weird call signs. Like if they don't use their name or something easy to remember, and you haven't seen them for a while, it's sometimes very difficult to remember who was that person, what was their name.
Exactly.
And so I think it's really important, to have that kind of consistency across all channels. Like whatever your name is, try to use the same name so you can be recognized. But but it's also good to just use a real name or something that's easy to remember. But someone that I knew 10 years ago, I finally found her because just by guessing what her name was. And she's someone who actually came to Seattle twice to visit me, but I didn't know I couldn't remember what her name was or her Twitter handle. So it was just kind of a miracle that we were able to reconnect. But we had many conversations and had a 45-minute phone call the other day. So it was really nice to catch up. But those are the kinds of things that happen, you know.
That's so good. You guys caught up with each other again. That would be sad not to at that point.
I know.
Yeah, I'm going to make a comment because you mentioned Twitter. You're one of the few people that I know who is significantly connected and successfully connected on Twitter. I mean, you seem to be, you become very successful on Twitter and you have a huge following. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? You created all that in 1 week? How did that happen?
You know, first of all, you guys, there is an advantage to being an early adopter. And I started on Twitter in 2008. So can you imagine how long ago that was there? I mean, that's like...
In social media, that's light
like
years.
A lifetime.
That is like, in dog years, you know, they'd be like geriatrics, right? So, but for sure, early adoption is one advantage of it. But also, it really kind of centers on the content that you share and that you create and that you curate, and also just making sure that you connect with people. Like, you guys have done such an amazing job on LinkedIn, for example. Like, you connect through following and through amplifying, and you've been able to, you know, draw people into your LinkedIn world, and I feel, you know, I'm like really dipping my toe in the water with it, and I just marvel at the way you guys have done that. But it's very similar to Twitter in some ways.
I think it's very similar, and I think that what's really hard is there's several. You could be successful, presumably, in several formats. I happen to like LinkedIn a lot, and because we're artists or we create visual art, we like to be on Instagram. Twitter, I've always had kind of an off and on relationship with it.
That's true.
And I think you tell us, Terri, if you were to choose one, is there an advantage of being really strong on one format? I mean, you've done huge success on Twitter.
Is there an advantage to being strong on one format?
Yes, thank you.
I think the advantage is that when you're strong in one format and you move to another, there are a certain number of people on that format that are going to follow you over to another channel. And I'm sure that has also happened with you guys. Because if they like what they're seeing in one place, every channel is a little different, and hopefully you're not putting out the same information, you know, cross-posting the same exact information to everything, because that would be, well, really bad practice in general. But it's nice to be able to see a different side of somebody through what they're sharing on various channels. And my Twitter feed is very unique to most of what I share. Sometimes I cross-post over to LinkedIn if I think it's relevant, but not usually.
Boy, if you could see Iggy and I, we both look at each other and go,
uh-oh. Dun, 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 dun. We do that. We cross-post because it's like the same people aren't on all the platforms. So it's like,
no, and you guys are absolutely right.
Yeah.
You really are absolutely right. But, you know, just in terms of like what I studied in school, which sounds so funny to be my age and going back to school, but I did go back to college 2 years ago to study digital marketing. And it was just pointed out to me that it was really a lazy and bad practice to do that. And yet everybody does that. The trick is to kind of modify it somewhat, like maybe not use the same image in both places, you know, or something like that. But just doing automatic cross-posting is usually not recommended, you know, and so I try not to do that. But I'm guilty of it as well. So
well, that's a good tip.
That's
I think
a
that's
really
a good tip for our listeners.
Yeah. Because I'm sure we're not the only ones.
Oh no, you're
Yes.
far. I frequently see things on Instagram, and I will go over to Facebook and I'll see exactly the same thing, like exactly. And I go, well, I already commented on it on Instagram, so
Well,
do I have to say something again?
That's us.
Yeah, that's
right
us.
there.
But part of that happens because when you do a post on Instagram, it will automatically
post
share it over there. And then you go, wow, I don't even have to go in there and do it. But I guess.
So it's like, check, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
Well, mine has been kind of sequestered over on my business page, and that my business page on Facebook was really only created in order to gain the access to analytics on Instagram. So
right. Yeah.
I don't really spend a lot of time on that page, but there are a few people who are just, that aren't on Instagram that like reading it. So,
that's true.
That works out fine.
That's true. Now, since we're talking about Instagram, I know that a lot of people that follow us use Instagram, and I know you have turned your Instagram into a blogging platform. Tell us how and why.
Yeah,
why would you do
exciting.
the blogging on that?
Well, you guys, 4 years ago, I started to write longer posts on Instagram, and there was a reason for it. I was kind of going through a career crisis, and I just started like making some random comments on Instagram about what I was going through. And then all of a sudden I noticed that I was getting really increased comments back to me about what I was writing. Because before I would say, walking along the beach, I saw this today, and then put a few hashtags and, just kind of like your perfunctory captions on an image.
Right.
But when I started writing kind of more personally about what I was thinking or experiencing, it was really incredible what happened. And I felt like I'd stumbled on a secret, because it was repeatable. It was something that people, if they knew about what I was doing and they knew how to do it and they did it, they would be shocked at the amount of interaction that they would get. Because as a blogger for many, many years, and putting my heart and soul into those blog posts and then getting like 12 comments back.
Right.
It's really a lot of work for what you get back, and comments are the lifeblood of a blog. And then when you don't get very many of them, you feel like you're moribund, right?
Right.
But Instagram was game changing that way, because the comments and the interaction was it was phenomenal. So I felt like it was something that could be shared and learned. And that's kind of what inspired me to try to follow up with it and do something.
I could see that,
point.
Terri, honestly, because sometimes I've seen it many times where somebody will write this very extensive blog and they keep doing it over a year and maybe 2 years, and they're only getting 3 or 4 comments here and there, and it feels very discouraging. You feel like your reach is like zero.
But when I do that on Instagram, I write pretty extensively.
Yeah, you do.
And then it's maybe a story, and then I tell people they have to go to my website to read the rest of it. I think the thing that I really enjoy, and I've read some of your longer posts, Terri, and they're really fascinating. I think part of the problem with Instagram is a lot of people just flat don't like to read, and sometimes I fall into that category. But it's really interesting when you write something that's fairly long, and then you get a short answer back from somebody, and they're quoting what you said. I think that's kind of interesting in itself. Or they'll pick one statement that you made, because I'm writing stories. They'll pick something the character did, and then they'll quote that back in Instagram. I think that is kind of interesting. But so your advice to people is to don't write the short sentence that says, "Here I am standing at Heaps
Here
Peak.
I am eating this for lunch."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think really there's room for every kind of person on Instagram, but I'm kind of speaking more to people who enjoy writing, people who enjoy engagement, because if you're a blogger, you want people to read what you're writing, and you want to get some kind of validation or feedback, and I'm telling you, that's really hard to come back on a blog, even if you have thousands of subscribers. A lot of people will see that come into their email and just like not read it, right?
It's
like
true.
Because there's so much email, like you kind of go, oh, I'm really not up for this right now, and then you just end up throwing it away or whatever. But on Instagram, your audience is already there. I mean, they're there instantly the moment you post something. So it's so different from being on a blog.
Oh, that's a great point.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, your audience wants to be there. Where on a blog, they're kind of having to go there, right?
Right.
So this is so game changing to use Instagram that way, because one of the things that Instagram is really trying to do is they devised all these things that have caused people to hang out on the platform more, like videos and and longer format movies and stuff. And they really want people to stay on the platform. But when you're writing a fairly long post on Instagram, people are staying on the platform longer. And not only are they staying there, they're actually engaging with it because they're thinking, they're responding, and some people are just like saying, nice click, or, something like that.
Right.
And that's fine. That's really great too. Or maybe they just like it and move on. But the people who actually stop and start, looking at what you're saying and then having their own opinion and sharing it, and then having other people see their opinion and reacting to what they say. I mean, it's really kind of fascinating because that never happens on any of the blogs that I've ever done, like where people start talking to each other outside of me,
Yeah, and then there's the Sassy Art Museum. We do some work for them, and we notice that these artists will make a comment on another artist's post, and then they'll come back and make a comment. It's like they're using it as their own social
chat
media.
board, yeah,
chat board.
Exactly.
It's really kind of interesting, and it's amazing how far this goes. You've given us some pretty good answers, but what would be your best advice to anyone that wants to grow their audience?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants to grow their audience.
Yeah.
Well, if you're just starting out, it's always key to add people that to your social media channels. Like on Instagram in particular, tapping into your Facebook friends is the number one thing that you can do to connect followers to your Instagram feed. But it's just really important that you share content or curate content that provides value and is interesting to people who follow you. So there's two different channels of things going on Instagram, which is the visual and then the caption. So if you can really be mindful about the kind of visual statement that you're trying to make, you're creating persona, you're in a certain niche, maybe it's cats, maybe it's flowers or whatever, you're going to attract those kinds of people based on the visual content. But then the key is like trying to engage with your followers, whether or not you're just thanking them for comments or making sure that you visit their stuff and reciprocal actions. Those take time, but those are the relationships that form the basis of growth for friends and more followers.
And what do you do? What do you do about the people that follow you and then 3 minutes later they dump you, they unfollow you? And I mean, when I see somebody that has 10,000 followers and they're following like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 and they follow you, all of a sudden you could be pretty sure that you're not going to be around very long.
Yeah.
Well, I have really mixed feelings about, I suppose for me, it's if their content provides that much value to me, then I don't care if they don't follow me back because I'm in it to follow their content. But when people are just gaming the system like that, it's a problem. I mean, it's made it so I very rarely follow anybody back now because you just take a glance at their profiles and go, nope, that person is, not in the army and they're not a surgeon and they're not a pilot,
And they're either a widow, right? Or a widower. Yeah.
And they're not they're not God-fearing, lonely people seeking their life mate, and all that other stuff that you end up reading.
I love it.
So I just kind of have a tendency to either block them or just ignore them. But really, if you want to really accelerate the process, of growing your followers, you can look at the followers of someone who's really similar to you, like whether they're posting in the same visual niche or whether they're kind of in the same like work category, like professional category.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at their followers, and especially people who are active and engaging with their content, follow those people, follow them, add them to your followers list, and engage with a few of their posts, maybe make a comment. And a lot of times when you take the time to follow somebody and make a comment and engage with their content, that's going to be a good indicator to them that you would be someone that they would be interested in, especially if you're posting the same, similar kinds of content to the person that that you've kind of used as a source,
That's good advice.
That's very good advice.
That's good advice on how to grow, because people don't, you read all kinds of books and stuff on how to gain followers, but what you just said certainly makes the most sense. Follow like minds, because they're likely to like what you're
follow
sharing.
Back.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's probably the way that a lot of people have grown their audiences on Twitter and in other places. And I don't know how you guys have managed to just kill it over on LinkedIn, but I need to get with it. I need to start paying attention to what you're doing, because I would like to make that a more lively and relevant space for myself. So I think we can all learn from each other.
Yeah, for sure. We've learned a lot from you just by having you on this podcast. So we'll be happy to share with you what little we know about LinkedIn, although LinkedIn is a pretty good place to be, I think.
It's kind of like Instagram, where you have to engage, just exactly what you were saying, engage with people, and tagging people is really helpful.
And writing stories. Just really, it's kind of like Instagram. But I know that LinkedIn seems more businessy, like you should just only talk about business things. But it's really not turning out to be that way at all. And business people are interested in knowing more about art. They get tired of everybody talking about business, and they want to tap into somebody else. We tapped into a guitar player, and he turned out to be we developed a nice friendship with him, and he's in Spain, right, Angie?
No, he's
well. Let me just tell you that guy kills it. He is so talented, and I totally enjoyed listening to that podcast episode, because he was great and you were great, and his music, and both of you have practically identical taste in music to me.
Yeah.
So when I was listening to you banding about these names, I'm going, yes.
Well, what's very interesting about him is he's really good at social media. He's growing it. We gave him a couple tips, and he gave us a couple tips.
He did.
So it was a symbiotic relationship that turned out to be really great. And just knowing him on LinkedIn, and other musicians have then started following us, and we started following them, and it's been a nice category. It's a category that we really like, so it was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
But we could.
He was great.
Yeah, he was very good.
Yes, he was.
Go ahead, Angie.
I wanted to ask Terri, considering your background in business and your knowledge when it comes to research, if you had to do it all over again, what would you change?
Do you mean about the way that I've done my business?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it's really strange, but I actually ended up doing exactly what I should have been doing without even knowing that I should have done it. Because basically when you're starting a business, you really should do some research first. And I did. I looked at the research of what kinds of businesses were in the area, because as a graphic designer, I wanted to be kind of in a place where there were other professionals that were doing similar kinds of work, ad agencies, design studios and stuff. And especially when I bought the Stack camera, I wanted to make sure I was able to pay for that thing. So I did some research. I looked at how many cameras were in that area, and I put together a bank proposal. And I was like in my mid-20s. I put together, a profit and loss statement, all kinds of stuff, and gave it to a banker. And he gave me a loan, which was so crazy because I honestly did not know what I was doing. But, I looked up stuff in the library because in those days, that's all you could do was to go to the library and look at stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I did do a certain amount of research to develop a strategy for how I planned my business. And I think that research in all things, whether you're planning a campaign or planning a business, whatever you're doing, it really helps to kind of get the lay of the land before you launch into something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question.
You did,
a great
actually.
answer. And for the entrepreneurs out there, I think they're going to really like that answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to kind of shorten this question up because Edge's got a really great question after this one, as I see on here. But based on what you said so far, I think you probably are a strong proponent of people promoting their brands like artists or any creative people on social media. Do you think that's really a great place to build a brand?
I think social media, and particularly Instagram, but to another level, Twitter, are great places to be if you're an artist. And if a client is interested in knowing more about you and Googles you and sees that you've embraced technology and that you're accessible, they can look at these feeds and gain insights about you and kind of learn what kind of person you are, what you do, how you engage with other people. Yeah, I definitely think that it's something that creative people benefit from being there.
Okay, great.
I could see that, yeah.
Okay.
Important.
I like your next question.
My next question is, you have a book available on Amazon entitled Blogging on Instagram, Engagement Writing on One of the World's Best Social Media Platforms. Terri, share with us why you wrote that book and who do you think will most benefit from reading it?
Well, I kind of alluded to why I wrote the book. I was kind of going through a career crisis like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the catalyst for the idea of writing a book about it, because it was so astonishing what happened that I felt like I couldn't just sit on this. I needed to tell other people about it because it was really valuable experience for myself and for others. But my book explores the intersection of blogging and social media. And because you're blogging on Instagram, you have a presence where your readers already live and they're already them, and you don't have to, they find you. And that is like right, off the bat, an amazing advantage to being able to blog there. So that was the reason why I wrote the book. And I think that the people who most benefit from reading it are people who enjoy writing, people who are already bloggers, people who would like to join Instagram but maybe don't exactly know how they will use it.
Right.
I do think that experienced bloggers will be gratified by and instant engagement as opposed to delayed gratification, and new bloggers will feel the satisfaction of writing and building connections who engage and become some of your greatest supporters. So there's no drawback, from what I could see, and I just wanted to kind of explain the process to people. If they were interested, in any of these kinds of things. And I also think it applies to people who are doing marketing, people who are marketing writers who are creating content on behalf of brands. They can also benefit from it. They're I just really wanted to share the knowledge, and because I was so personally excited about it.
I think you did a great job doing it.
I think so too. I think it's a very important thing to share when you have so much knowledge like yourself here.
And you've addressed my next question. You've addressed almost everything that I was going to ask you, and I'm going to save part of it. No. I'm going to save part of this for later. No, because what you've been saying has been
right on the money.
Really interesting. So I'm yielding the floor to you.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Do you know the question?
I know my question.
Okay.
I know that you are aware, Terri, of the fact that Rod is a commercial photographer, and you had a lot of experience working with photographers. And it looks like you are making a lot of photographs yourself that you can see on your website. Is that a good creative outlet for you?
It's definitely a great creative outlet for me, but I will always bow down to the professionals. I have such profound admiration and respect for the pro photographers out there who know about f-stops.
Oh, yes.
Just like
it's it's F8. That's the most sharp one. Always remember F8.
F8, and also like shutters. Just everything about using a camera, which is completely alien to me. I just admire it so much, and so it is a great outlet. But I always really admire the people who really, really know what they're doing.
Well, sure. Understand.
Well, everything you've done in your career has taken advantage of your writing skills. In fact, we just discussed that.
Right.
Is that something that Terri comes naturally to you, or did you have to overcome some challenges along the way?
I wouldn't say I had to overcome any challenges because I've always been kind of a writer. Like back in the day before there were cell phones and stuff, there was having a pen pal. I don't know if you know what that is.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I had several when I was growing up. Yeah, so much fun.
And it was really fun to get a letter and write a letter. And so I've always been really interested in writing. But my discipline as a graphic designer was really more focused on marrying the two things, the words and the design. And so because I do love writing and respect it, I always read everything I designed, and not all graphic designers do that. Sometimes they just get the copy and they kind of have an idea and then they force it on whatever it is.
Yeah.
And for me, I felt like it was really important to read and have it inform the way that a project would come to be. And so I just continued kind of pursuing writing on my own, but definitely I think it really made me a better graphic designer.
Oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm gonna go back to my question now. And
you changed your mind. I like it.
I think now's the time to ask you.
Okay.
Terri, what do you think is the number one takeaway from our discussion today? If you're going to leave one thought for our listeners, what would it be when it comes to social media?
I think the number one takeaway is that this is an opportunity that is free and accessible, and it's an easy way to establish a public presence. And that given all of those things, how easy it is to do it, there's no excuse to not do it unless you just don't have the bandwidth for it. And that's really legit. Like if you are just so slammed that you can't even take care of what's happening like on your to-do list today, then probably social media isn't going to help you. It'll just cause anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think once you dive in, you learn a lot from what you see, and you form connections with people and people that can help you. Malcolm Gladwell, I think, wrote about how the people that are not in your inner circle, but it's the people in your secondary and tertiary circles that are often the people that are going to be most supportive of you. I really feel that that's true. And you kind of establish a lot of those kinds of friendships on social media. So I think it's, I advise people to pursue it.
That's a great answer.
That is
and I know
such a good
we
answer.
have friends that we have met on social media years ago, and we're
Right.
still connected.
And still supportive.
And still,
after
we
all these
still
years.
support each other, and we're always excited to hear something new that's going on in their lives and vice versa. It's surprising because maybe in your own neighborhood or in your work or wherever you are, you have one group of friends, but it seems like you can have an entirely different group of friends of like minds, actually, that you meet and communicate with on social media. Is that true?
I totally believe that. In fact, during the pandemic, I felt like I was in closer touch with my social media friends than my real life friends, because you check in on social media and you really get a sense about their day-to-day lives, where it takes like the effort of making a phone call or FaceTime call or something to talk to a friend, where this kind of readily available, instantly, exchange of thoughts and ideas on social media is very, very gratifying. And it does feel like you are real life friends. And many of the people that I've met on social media, I have met in real life. And it's a seamless kind of transition to go from online to real life, because you really do know these people. It's just, hasn't been in real life until the moment you meet and shake hands or exchange hugs or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with you on that, Terri, 100%.
I like the fact that you can also go on vacation on social media, because we have friends that live in other parts of the world, and they'll send us a little video or pictures of their beach or their mountains or whatever, or their
somewhere cool they went.
They would go, or where they ate.
Yeah.
That's usually the one that drives me the most crazy. They're having all this exotic food in some beautiful country somewhere, and we're having ham and eggs.
Well, but wasn't it just great during the pandemic to be able to travel without ever leaving your home? I mean, that was awesome,
That was good, because you didn't have to outlay any cash or any effort. Like, it was just brought to you. Here it is. Take a look.
Yeah, and if you ask a question, you go, God, what is that you're eating? And then they come back and tell you all about it. It sounds exciting. And then they go, don't you have that where you live? And we go, no.
Right. That's great.
Okay, well, you're up.
Okay, so now we're going to ask you the question we ask all of our guests, Terri. And that is, if you could sit on a park bench and chat with anyone from the past, who would it be?
Well, I would love to sit on a park bench with my grandmother and have available all the new technology that would actually make it possible for us to communicate with each other. Because I think that's possible now, where you can have, be speaking in different languages and be able to actually have a conversation. And there's so many questions I'd ask her about her life in Japan before she came to the United States, and to learn about her family that, I don't know anything about, and just kind of find out, what she really felt about when our family was put into camps during the war. And, there are all these questions that I have that I would love to know the answers to. So I used to answer this question and say Steve Jobs, but no. It's my grandmother, for sure.
You'd be surprised how many people refer to their grandparents. Yeah. I'd say that is the number one response that we get.
Yeah, a lot of response. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a number one, because I think people, the unfortunate thing about grandparents is you don't spend as much time with them as you'd like to.
Right.
And the time that you do spend with them, for the most part, is quality time, because they're not busy trying to raise you. They're just being really loving.
Well, they have time for you. Then.
Dote. Yeah, that's a good point. They have time and they dote on you. But they also have a lot of knowledge to share.
You know what the sad part about, being a child and then having a grandparent, and then later on, and when you grow up, you're like, I didn't ask them all of these questions that now I have. So I can see why you would say that, and I can see where you're coming from, Terri. Because it's so.
Well, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it would be amazing. So that would be my wish, for sure.
That's a good answer.
We're wrapping this up, Terri. So I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts and strategies on using social media. I know this is going to be a popular episode.
Sure it is.
Because whether we like it or not, we're all hooked on social media. But you shared some really good information.
Thank you very much, Terri. And thank you for sharing with your expertise with us today. And now comes the time that I let our listeners know, if you'd like to know more about Terri We will have links for her under the show guest tab on ThoughtRowPodcast.com so everyone can learn more about her. And please connect with her on social media because she's always very interesting and her posts are interesting, so you'll love it.
Yeah, connect with her on social media, and we'll also have a link for that book because that book has been a real eye-opener for us, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And we don't promote books. We don't promote books on our show. This is a kind of something that we're more than happy to do because this book is really worth reading.
It's really so generous, and you guys are the most gracious and professional podcast hosts. And it's been a pleasure to be here, not just talking with you, but on this episode, but also just getting to know you offline. I loved our shared experiences and history, and really appreciate the chance to be here with you today. So thank you so much.
Well,
you're so welcome, and we feel likewise for you because we've enjoyed getting to know you as well.
You're very kind, and thank you so much. Okay, well, I guess we need to say goodbye.
Yes, goodbye, Terri.
Goodbye,
Bye-bye.
Terri. I'm really glad you tuned in today. We hope you enjoyed the thoughts and ideas we shared with you.
We post a new podcast every week, so remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. So it's bye for now from my husband Rod and I, wishing everyone